During the years after World War II, technology advanced tremendously. People with many, many degrees climbed into their crystal palaces and their golden domes and forgot. The lessons of the past were forgotten. Much was driven by the superior knowledge and the ego of the designers. They didn't appreciate the use of fighters. They'd been thinking so long about nuke strike. What do you need a gun for? Oh, the Sidewinder will solve everything. He didn't put a gun on the F-4. I flew an entire year of combat without a gun on the F-4. I managed to shoot down 4 MiGs. But if I'd had a gun on that F-4, I say unequivocally, without any doubt in my mind, I could have shot down 9 more MiGs.
We went into Vietnam going full circle. The tactics that we used were antiquated. The weapons that we used were utilized to shoot down Russian bombers, not like turning MiG-17s, 19s, or 21s. The pilots were not trained properly. We went in with reckless abandonment and got our socks knocked off. For a power like ours to go into a country like theirs and fight against their airplanes, we did very poorly.
U.S. military chiefs, responding to this and what they saw as the growing Soviet threat, set out to improve their tactics. The Navy introduced the Top Gun Weapons School, and the Air Force followed with its own answer, the Aggressor Squadrons.
Today will be MiG-01, flight of 4, simulating MiG-21, against Cobra-01, a flight of 2 F-15s. We'll plan on carrying 4 aphids. We will regenerate after each engagement.
The Air Force's aim was to simulate as closely as possible the reality of air combat.
We'll take the south.
That called for a force that flew and fought exactly like a potential enemy. A peacetime opponent pilots could fly against to prepare them for war.
One of the keys to any war is historians will tell you forever and ever, and it's valid right now, and that's knowing your enemy. And that's one of the things that I pride myself on, and all the aggressors do, is that we know our enemy. We study them in depth.
We'll go for the Tally-Ho.
I'm a commander of a Soviet fighter squadron. I fly an aircraft. It's a U.S. aircraft, but it's very similar in size and performance characteristics of the earlier Soviet fighters. The MiG-21 and MiG-23 are pretty close in size. I train like the Soviets do. We study the man. We study his hardware, his armament. You walk around our squadrons, you'll see Soviet flags, pictures of Soviet heroes. We wear a hammer and sickle on the helmet and a hammer and sickle on the equipment. Red star on our sleeve. We are basically a Soviet fighter squadron. In fact, I personally feel that we probably execute Soviet tactics better than the Soviets do, but that's a personal feeling.
The Aggressor Squadron takes off to play its part in Red Flag, a combat exercise that's fought out on the United States Air Force's vast bombing and gunnery range in the Nevada desert. An elite force among fighter pilots, they will be the enemy, adding a realistic ingredient to the training of the pilots who fly against them. Challenging the aggressors is a new breed of super fighters. They carry an awesome array of armament and fly twice the speed of sound. In Red Flag, pilots can use live weapons against unmanned targets. Aerial combat hits are scored electronically. But for the men taking part, the battle feels real enough.
The training that we do at Red Flag gives me feelings that were very, very similar to what I experienced in my combat experience in Southeast Asia.
Okay, one bandit spit out northwest 3 miles. Look across the circle for the other one about a mile.
The ultimate challenge of life or death struggle. The elements of that are all here at Red Flag. We will never achieve true fidelity because we certainly won't be shooting real bullets and missiles at each other in this program. But short of that, it's the best we have.
Okay, the lead just went in a right-hand turn to south, come hard left, 180, check on the nose mile.
Okay, thank you. Who has a guy to the south? He's 230 for 10, coming at you. I got him.
Today's air battle will probably start out at longer ranges, with missiles being employed, probably by both sides. And as those airplanes approach a common merge together, then the fight becomes more of the classic visual dogfight.
You got a bogey, 6 o'clock for 6,000 feet. Right. Keep the turn in, we're coming around hard on him. Okay, we got it. Yeah. Turn left, somebody to the left. Roger, non-posty switch, reverse back, come back left. He's right out of clock now, go to that little peak. Okay, I can be in on him here, Roy. Can't get flared in, I'll make a right turn, get him. Hey, watch the guy now, 235 for 6, coming at you. Got medium head off, eh? Okay, I got him.
The day of the dogfight is alive and well, and it is just as intense and it's just as brutal as it ever was before. The only difference is that now we have the advent of using a couple of extra weapons other than the gun. That dogfight can either be the close-in one with the gun, classic one from World War II, Korea, or it can also be a little further out to where we can use some of our tactical missiles.
In World War II, you were limited almost exclusively to the visual arena. And Chuck Yeager makes no bones about the fact that he was a highly successful fighter pilot because he had better eyes than anybody else in the squadron. Well, today, you could wear bifocals and probably beat Chuck Yeager in his World War II airplane because you'd see him on your radar much sooner and be able to employ a sophisticated weapon against him before he ever saw you with his real good eyes. So that's the difference between the past fighter pilots and what we're seeing today.
After the battle comes the debriefing. The whole exercise has been monitored and recorded.
Blue air-to-air players, BVR with radar missiles if we
In the
could,
calm
then
of the
blow through
computer
and strike,
room,
hit the
pilots
strike
can
target
analyze
itself.
how they performed in the heat of combat.
Okay, Paul, right here, we had just gotten done being engaged south of Reveille there, and we're trying to run out east and get our formation back to line abreast and just regain some SA. You can see number 6 here rolling up. I'm not picking you up visually, I'm looking back at the wingman. And right about here as you take your shot, number 2, or number 6 in this case, the wingman, picks you up a little bit late. You can see as your missile times out, I get a brake call right about now, and I go into a hard left turn. But as we can see from the replay here, it's a little late. There I go into my turn.